Yo, 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 welcome to another show of It Matters because whatever we talk about really matters to whom you are listening to. In this case, it's me, Zikri Khalil, your host for this show that's been going on for the past few weeks. Today, what are we talking about that really matters to all of the societies and communities around the world? Well, we have someone that is an expert, or I would say someone who really cares about the education of our children, but don't feel like this is just another generic educationer speaking. This is more than that because this is something of a taboo in some countries, including this country. This person is going to share a lot about it, much more during this 10-minute show. So before I bring her on board, let me play you a quick snippet from her work. So have a look. So there was a quick snippet of Siti Aishah's project called Hello Spot Girl. That's been around for quite some time, been making waves in the local scene here in Malaysia, touching on sex education and other stigmas that most things that we don't really have the time to talk about. So welcome, Aisha. How are you?
I'm good, given the fact that we're all in a lockdown still. So I'm doing good. Thank you, Zikri.
Oh no, that's all right. It's my pleasure to have you. It's been a while since we've convened, and I thought it's best to tell the whole world of the work that you're doing here in Malaysia. I mean, I understand the work that you do, but perhaps it's best to learn more about yourself on understanding how is this a problem in the first place.
Yes, thank you so much, Zikri, for inviting me, to talk about Spot on your platform. It's really kind of you and generous to share our work out with your viewers. So, how is it a problem? In our country, 1 in 3 young people said that their first sexual experience was before the age of 14. 1 in 3 young women believe that they will not get pregnant from having sex just one time. 1 in 5 believes that STI can actually be contracted through mosquito bites. Annually, 14 in 1,000 girls fall pregnant. 45 teenage girls give birth every day. In Malaysia, rapists can avoid prosecution by marrying their victims. Statistics also suggest that at least 100,000 women have been raped by their intimate partner during their lifetime, because marital rape is not considered a crime in our country, for those who don't know. And these are the statistics that I'm sharing prior to the pandemic. Now, I know that we have all seen in the news, in the Twitter feeds, in our social media feeds, how reports of domestic abuse, baby dumping, and online sexual exploitation and manipulation of children had been increasing during the pandemic. During our lockdowns. And this escalation is very worrying because the results of these tragedies will not just reflect poorly on our nation's and society's ability to protect our children, but on a more personal level, right? Think about those houses that everyone's trapped in and potentially has no escape from. Think about those unspeakable personal costs that the child and the family has to endure during these already trying and challenging times.
You just shared incredible amount of information that I have noticed a few of them, but I did not know how deep this problem lies. I mean, you can see I'm a bit shocked, more or less. Coming from a country like Malaysia. I mean, this is just Malaysia alone. We're not talking about other nations at the moment. But so the problem is quite alarming than I expected. I think I think a lot of our viewers who are watching this will agree also. But how did you manage to get yourself involved in the first place? Like how, like what was the moment that you just told
The
yourself enough?
origin story, is it?
However you want to, portray it, I mean the amount of work you've done is absolutely, hats off, top on. But how did you get yourself involved? Your woman also at the same time, and I can only imagine whether if it's coming from hearing stories or coming from experience. Would you mind sharing?
Of course. I hope I didn't scare any of the audiences like I scared you with the statistics and the stories I shared earlier. And those are very much real, right? And it shows, of course, the impact, the real life impact on the lives of our children. Perhaps sharing the story of how I started will also kind of give context to why I feel to feel driven to help address these problems. So I first came to a realization of the extent of issues surrounding children's sexuality education here in Malaysia when I was a student in the University of Malaya. During that time, I was volunteering as an enumerator. My given task was to interview some 50 families about their health status to collect information on diseases among urban communities. So I was gathering information on behalf of medical doctors and researchers. Now, because I'm a student, I was doing doing my own research because I kepochi on another person's expense of this research that I was volunteering for. So during that experience, I realized going to the PPR blogs, I went to 9 different places of PPR locations. I realized that the children who were living there, they were extremely vulnerable to predators and abusers. Sebab most of them, English, Aisha, because most of them are left alone and unsupervised for a long period of time, obviously because their parents have to work, right? And their caregivers have to work. So, but after speaking with the parents and the guardians and the family members, I also discovered a lack of awareness on how dangerous their outlook, these families' outlook on the topic of sex and sexuality was. And this dangerous outlook for me as a young person, coming face to face is like, okay, I'm interviewing them and this is what I'm finding out. I realized that this outlook had perpetuated the practices of baby dumping and infanticide, child marriages even, practices that of course bear unspeakable personal cost. Can you imagine 12, 13, 14 years old girls and boys are encouraged to get married because of one mistake or a couple of mistakes that they've done. So these practices really have real life impact on our children, especially the personal costs. So I was thinking, okay, what can I do? So I did some research. I go on the internet and I asked, some experts and doctors, and I decided to engage our children in comprehensive sexuality education. That was when I founded SPOT. Our work is generally to help parents and teachers initiate respectful conversations around the topics of sex and sexuality in order to help prevent child sexual abuse and reduce unsafe sex practices amongst children, and of course, prevent child marriages. To do this, our volunteers go into schools and they talk to students from the age of 9, the definitions of sex, what safe sex is, pregnancy, we talk about contraception, and we talk about sexually transmitted infections. We also talk about sexualized behaviors and that focuses on bodily integrity, responsibilities, boundaries, consent, and their rights and the laws around consent and sex. This is aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 3, 4, and 5, which are good health and well-being, quality education, and gender equality directly. Since we started in 2015, our programs have been delivered to 11,248 children and in 81 schools in 6 states in Malaysia.
let's talk about the challenges that you have to get this ball running. And I mean, knowing how conservative, especially the Malay communities are, just to understand safe sex, or just talking about sex alone, or just saying the word sex. How did you manage to get them to feel more comfortable to talk about it? Because I know it's so well deep in the Muslim community in Malaysia, especially the Malays. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. On for them just to open up and just to have this discussion with a 12-year-old, or the children. I mean, what did you do to overcome this big hurdle, I would say?
So many questions in just one line. Okay,
What is
so
the one?
you ask about challenges, and you ask about what I did in order to overcome these challenges. So I would share with you throughout the time that I've spent working in this line, a lot of people would say, "Oh, maybe the biggest challenge you have is with religious leaders or with parents." You know, because our society sees these topics as taboo and sees these topics as something that, you know, that's highly stigmatized and highly sensitive. Like, who are you? Why do you think you can, you know, overcome all these barriers and challenges? And things like that, because we're working with children, right? So my response to these cloud of worries that a lot of people often imagine is to engage everyone on a human level. You know, we all see things, we all hear things, and we all feel things, right? So I engage them from a place of course, with openness and with a lot of amount of respect, from a place of kindness, from a place of generosity, and from a place of love, instead of, you know, from a place of stigma and shame and humiliation and fear. So we strive to provide safe spaces for everyone, especially the children that we work with, and empowering them with knowledge, thus transforming, co-creating brave spaces and encouraging open and respectful conversations around the topics of sex and sexuality.
I see. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, going with that approach. I guess going
Because
forward.
we're all human first, right, Zikri? Like, no matter
Yeah,
what, we're human first. And personally, from the experience of engaging with parents and religious leaders and experts, everyone actually understands the value of providing information, providing education, providing knowledge,
absolutely.
and especially, you know, when we have, you know, inherited the inability to speak about sex in a positive manner.
And topping up on that, the now that people are grasping these immense information, you know, on this specific topic that we're talking about today, what would you say to those who are watching? What would you tell them for those who are questioning you by saying, why does it matter? You know, why should I care? You know, for an average viewer, like um, of a very conservative parent, or for you know, for a young Malaysian who doesn't think this is a problem, why should they care?
Loaded question, but yes, my answer is we all have a woman that we care for in our lives, our mothers, our sisters, our cousin sisters, our girlfriends, our daughters. You know, wouldn't we want to keep them safe and support them so that they are able to live a fulfilling life? That is the standard script. But I say, Kak Aishah kata, we all have people who we love and care for in our lives, regardless of sex and gender. Our boys need caring for and need protection against predators too. So we need to bring the community back in order to uphold human rights and child rights, you know, especially a child rights to a safe space for shelter, for education, and access to healthcare. I'd like to invite you to imagine these scenarios with me, okay? Okay, Haikal, he's in his nenek's house during Raya. All the other cousins were gathering around Uncle Joe, taking turns bouncing up and down on Uncle Joe's knees. Haikal sat on Uncle Joe's lap, and Uncle Joe moved his knees up and down, up and down, up and down. Haikal just went, faster, faster, faster. And then him and his cousins were all laughing along with Uncle Joe and going faster, while everyone's laughing and he's just enjoying his fun. He realizes that Uncle Joe actually has both of his hands on Haikal's bum. So Haikal was thinking, oh, maybe Uncle Joe wants to help me move up and down without falling good. But it sure makes Haikal feel uncomfortable. But then Haikal was like looking around and everyone's laughing, you know, and he trusts his Uncle Joe because it's his uncle, right? And then he felt the urge to tell his mom. She's right there. Let's take another person, Mary. Mary is 14. She's been making out with Jason, her 15-year-old boyfriend. She didn't know exactly what they were doing, but it feels good. And one pleasure led to another. She finds out that she's pregnant. First thing that goes through her mind is, what will my mom say? I'll give you another story. Laila, she went to see her teacher. Laila is 11 years old. She had blood on her uniform. Her teacher could see that she was upset, but her teacher was unsure if, you know, it's the fear of bleeding out to death or the fear of being scolded by her mom when she gets home because her uniform is dirty. So her teacher was like, okay, I got this. And she explained to Laila that Laila is having her period and that she will be all right. And it's a natural process. And her teacher gave her a pad and asked her to go to the toilet and stick it onto her panties and be on her way, like go back to class after that. But Laila is still standing in front of the teacher and she looked more confused and she was ready to cry her eyes out again. She doesn't know how to tell her teacher that she doesn't have panties. Her parents cannot afford them. Now, this last story is actually from a school that's within walking distance to one of the largest malls that we know in Klang Valley. We've all either been Haikal or Mary or Laila, or we have someone in our lives that's very much like Haikal and Mary and Laila. Who can help if not you? When should you help if not now? I hope that I answered your question, Zikri.
No. That's plenty of scenarios that people can put their shoes in and try to understand that the different scenarios that you have known as a fact that's been going through the minds of our children, especially not knowing what to do. I mean,
They're
I can.
actually real stories. They're actually real stories from people that I work with.
Well, I hope those who are watching really understand the volume of this issue, and I can definitely relate to, you know, knowing the fact that you may have relatives that you care about who you may not know they're going through such of these mentioned scenarios or even worse. So I mean, we've been talking a lot more on these factors of the issues that you've gone through and trying to solve one by one, more from an education perspective. But how can more people who care about this kind of cause take part? And I understand that you are doing all you can to help, especially creating not just awareness, but having children to know, to have that how to say, informed decision in making sure that they get through if they ever to have to go through such scenarios. So how can we, all of us here watching, help you guys?
Call to action! Yay! Okay, I'll take this one step at a time. So SPOT, we educate in order to prevent the tragedies of underage pregnancies, child sexual abuse, STI amongst children, unsafe abortions, violence, dating dating violence, forced intercourse, bullying, psychological abuse that leads to poor mental health and emotional health, and potentially avoid death from HPV and HIV related complications. We are in the business of prevention. I mean, we're all familiar with the saying, prevention is better than cure, kan? So, as I mentioned, prior to the pandemic, we engage young people in CSE, Comprehensive Sexuality Education, by going into schools and talking and workshopping in brave spaces with 9 to 12-year-old girls. Since the pandemic, we've shifted online, and we are currently raising funds to help support our online rollout in Q3 and Q4 for 13 and 14-year-old children, both girls and boys. Yes, you heard that right, people. We have started and we've tested actually our modules out with boys, and this year is our first year to roll out in educating and providing CSE to both boys and girls. So we're no longer just addressing half of the population, but everyone. So we are currently looking for 2,000 heroes to pledge 50 ringgit to help enable us to continue empowering children with rights-based, evidence-based, culturally sensitive, and developmentally appropriate comprehensive comprehensive sexuality education. So we need you to be our hero. Get onto our website today and pledge. If you can pledge your time and not money, come volunteer with us with your best friend, your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or your siblings. So get onto our website, www.hellospotgirl.com, and pledge or volunteer today.
Thank you so much for that, Siti Aishah. We've put the website so people can have a look and go check it out. All the call to action is there. All the information is there. And we're out of time. But with that, I just want to thank you a millions of thanks for having you in our show. Because it matters. And I wish you all the best with your future endeavor and with your project coming up. And we'll be in touch, and stay tuned, everybody.